We believed that people would want to continue to use mobile messaging, but till they didn't have a platform that was enterprise ready, they would put their entire environment to risk. And so once NetSphere is deployed, it's the best of all worlds. And in essence, they get the solution they're looking for. They are productive, while at the same point in time, we help the enterprise to stay secure.
So it's, from what you're describing to me, it kind of sounds like it's an extrapolation of Apple's user space tiered architecture, right? Where everything is kind of sandboxed off, and what you're interacting with on your phone actually isn't able to interact with the layer down, which is, probably like things like the phone dialer, right? Or, the drivers that are installed, the OS and stuff like that. So it sounds like it's like a secured sandbox environment within, the potential sandbox environment, because I believe Android also, says that their user space is sandboxed off now, but I don't know how true that is. So it sounds like it's its own user space. So how does that interact with a potential like IMSI catcher, right? That you would encounter. I mean, allegedly they're all gone, but China used to have IMSI catchers in their airport terminals, right? As soon as you get off the plane, your phone connects to this IMSI catcher, downloads all of your data. It has everything. It doesn't even like technically, break your phone's security. How does it interact with a situation like that? Have you looked at something like that?
Absolutely. And that was one of the things that we wanted to make sure that at any given time, and I think the sandbox is a great way of describing it. Any given time when you're within the NetSphere sandbox, your data is kept secure. So if there is an MZ catcher, and it's secure because one of our strongest pillars that we've kind of built this platform on was encryption and true end-to-end encryption. And I'll describe that. The reason I said true, but to answer your question directly, in the context of MZ catcher, we aren't immune to the MZ catcher, but if they were to extract NetSphere data as it was going back and forth or pulling it off of the device, they would get a bunch of gibberish. And there's nothing they could do with that. So that was what we were trying to accomplish. It's difficult to sometimes be immune to the communication layer that is being compromised, right? But if the layer is carrying information that is gibberish to you, there's nothing you can do about it. And that's why not only are we end-to-end encrypted, we are now quantum proof. And in the same context of China, if you may, or other nations who are now leveraging cyber essentially has been weaponized, right? And with it being weaponized, in the old days, it was some mafia entities or some rogue folks who were trying to leverage cyber as a means to enrich themselves. Now we see that states have weaponized cyber as a means to engage in warfare. And what are they after? Is data. Any and every kind of data. We believe data is the next most valuable commodity, more valuable than even gold, if you may, because of the nature of the information it carries. So when we developed our platform, we wanted to make sure it was end-to-end encrypted. And what I mean by true end-to-end encrypted is most people who claim to have, or most platforms who claim to have end-to-end encryption, they decrypt the information along the way for various reasons. For addressing reasons, for information storage reasons, for if they're inspecting the data, for their own marketing reasons. Means we know of a very large company that has a messaging app called WhatsApp, right? And sometimes you wonder how they figure out what you're looking for when you had just mentioned it on an encrypted conversation, quote
Yeah,
unquote encrypted,
allegedly encrypted.
on WhatsApp, right? So we wanted to make sure there was true end-to-end encryption. So at nowhere along the path, as our data goes from the originating side to the terminating side or the receiving side, is that data decrypted. It's only decrypted by the user or the receiver, the legitimate user and the receiver. And we have multiple means of making sure that that happens. And then we said, okay, we want to make sure that we aren't susceptible, or at least essentially we are not susceptible to quantum threats, even though quantum computing is some ways off. Now, we don't know that for sure because we have all these state actors also investing billions in making sure they are the first ones with a platform such as that. We also have the private sector doing the same. If quantum could potentially be a threat, you started seeing harvest now, decrypt later attacks, where data was being harvested and is being kept. So even though it was encrypted, to be decrypted later. So we wanted to make sure our platform did not fall into that kind of a trap. And so that's why we upgraded our platform to quantum encryption. And today we proudly state that we are quantum proof. And it's an assurance to our customers who come from finance, healthcare, first responders, government, other entities, technology companies. It's an assurance to them that whatever they're communicating, leveraging our platform for today will remain safe even in a quantum world.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You brought up, right, how even like your modern, message, right? Let's say I'm messaging someone from my iPhone and they have an iPhone, right? And I'm getting the blue text box that everyone loves so much, right? And it's because Apple, markets it as, hey, that's fully encrypted and everything else like that, right? Like it's completely secure and it's going directly from phone to phone, there's nothing to worry about or whatnot. When in all actuality, it has to be decrypted at some point in time. And the reason why it has to be decrypted at some point in time is because the federal government can come in and go and subpoena Verizon to say, hey, I need all the messages off that phone, everything that was sent through your network from this device to whatever other device, right? And because we need to, track this person, they're a terrorist or whatever it might be, right? Whatever the situation is. Not only do they have to give up that data, but it has to be in a readable format, and even if it's not in a readable format, the government, 9.5 times out of 10, they're breaking whatever was on there so that they could get in and see it, which, I feel like a lot of people don't realize that or don't understand it, right? It's like it's it's secured to a point, right? It's secured against an adversary that doesn't have unlimited funds, that doesn't have unlimited manpower and time, right? It's secured against someone like myself, right? Like what are the odds that I'm actually even going to spend the time to try and, break that sort of encryption or whatnot, right? And if I could, I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast. I'd be giving talks around the world or something like that, right? But it's fascinating. I'm interested in the post quantum side of it, right? And so I'll give you a little background. I'm sure my listeners are probably tired of hearing me talk about it at this point, right? But I'm getting my PhD in utilizing the zero trust framework to secure communication satellite infrastructure to prepare it for post quantum, right? So that entails, taking the requirements of post quantum encryption. What does that look like? Okay, can we put that onto a satellite? Yes, we can. We have, the right resources and hardware and whatnot. Well, can we secure that hardware with zero trust, right? Zero trust being a framework that everyone knows. It's been around for a while. It's very widely deployed and used. It's a good framework overall. Can we take something that we know and kind of use it to protect ourselves from the future, right? Because we're kind of going into our uncharted territory right now with the advent of AI, with, quantum encryption, with quantum computers, right? All of these things are kind of combining or colliding together in a way that once they reach a certain point that maybe only 5 people on the planet actually know what that point is, once they reach that point, it's completely unstoppable, right? And it's like you're either going to be prepared for post quantum or you're not. And if you're not, you're going to be obsolete, right? Because all of your data is already going to be out there. You'd have to start from literal zero just to be able to say my data, my service is secure, right? And so we're starting to see companies actually put like post quantum cryptography and whatnot on their own roadmaps and saying like, hey, we need to amplify our spend, amplify the resources that we have around this, because if this quantum AI actually turns into a real thing, Chase Bank, if they don't have post quantum encryption already deployed on their devices, securing your data and whatnot, there's nothing holding back an AI that's powered by a nation state actor from using it in a malicious way. There's literally nothing you can do.
And you're absolutely right there. But before I comment on what you had to say with regards to quantum, I do want to talk about the back door per se that you mentioned in the realm of governments having access to some of the messages going back and forth.